lead on it. That'd be,
Yeah.
get my phone.
All right, Chair Williams, you're up.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm Janet Williams, the Mayor of Savage, and I'm serving as the Metropolitan Council Nominating Committee Chair for the District 3 vacancy. Thank you for joining us for this evening's public meeting, either virtually or in person at the Eden Prairie City Hall. And on behalf of the Nominating Committee, I'd like to extend our gratitude to the city and staff for hosting the in-person experience of tonight's public meeting. We have a cohort of finalists that we will hear from over the course of the evening. Each candidate will get 10 minutes for their interview. That is broken down into 6 minutes to answer 3 questions we sent finalists in advance and 4 minutes for the follow-up questions from the nominating committee. There will be a staff member keeping time, and they will give the candidates verbal cues about the time remaining. Here are the 3 questions that the candidates will address. Number 1, what policy issue before the council are you most interested in and addressing, and why? Item 2, please describe the amount of engagement and the type of engagement you will commit to as a council member. 3, what have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or an organization that you have worked with? The nominating committee will recommend a small group of top finalists this week to the governor's office. The governor will make the final decision on who will represent District 3 for the Metropolitan Council. Many of the nominating committee members are on the call tonight, and we want to do a quick round of introductions before we get started. So I'll call on the numbers alphabetically, and then if you can unmute yourself, then introduce yourself to the public, that would be great. So I'll start with Dave. Welcome,
Hi,
Dave.
Thank you. My name is Dave Bartholomew. I am the mayor of Circle Pines, Minnesota, and I'm representing Anoka County.
Okay. And John Choi, who represents the Ramsey County and the Attorney's Office, will be here later in the meeting. Jonette Citron will also be attending later. Pahua.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chair Williams. I'm Pahua Hoffman, and I'm really honored to serve on this selection nominations committee for District 3 Met Council. My day job, I work at Health Partners, but previously I was executive director for a policy organization called the Citizens League. And it's notable because its 1967 report led to the creation of the Met Council. So really excited to be with all of you tonight, and thank you all for applying.
Andrea?
No, this is George.
Oh. Well, I was going alphabetically. Andrea Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I too am honored to be a part of this selection committee. My name is Andrea Jenkins. I am the president of the Minneapolis City Council, and just really want to express my gratitude for the applicants to step up into this role as well. So thank you.
Randy?
Yes, my name is Randy Maloochnick. I'm a former county commissioner of Carver County. I'll be representing Carver County and on this committee. Also spent 4 years on the city council in Chaska. So I'm as all here, I'm very honored to be on this committee and think it's very important for our region that we select good people for this job. So.
Okay, George, are you there?
Hi. Yes, good evening. George Torville, served on the city of Inver Grove Heights City Council for 39 years. And I think we're in our 3rd kind of interview process for Metro Council,
right,
which is extremely important task, and look forward to getting a chance to meet the applicants. Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Nikki Villavicencio. I'm a Maplewood City Council member, and I'm the chair of the State Council on Disability. And I'm so glad to be here and thank everybody for interviewing. This is a very important, as a disability activist, I know how important your role as Met Council member will be. So thank you.
And now we have Lisa.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Wyke, County Commissioner. I'm representing beautiful Washington County in the East Metro. And we truly value our partnerships with the Metropolitan Council, and I admire all of the services that they are providing.
Well, thank you. Okay, let's get started with the interviews now. The first finalist is Dr. Tyrone Carter. Welcome.
Glad to be here. I'll just add real quick that I'll be the timekeeper tonight. And so at 6 minutes, I'll give you a 1 minute warning. Okay. And then when the time's up, I'll give you a stop. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I'm honored to be here today and honored to be a part of this process. And I hope at least I can add something to the process and ultimately move forward. But whatever the outcome, this is a great experience and I'm going to stay in a moment and enjoy it. I guess first I want to address the questions, the 3 questions that you had. And what I did, I wrote, I like to write things down so I'm consistent in my thoughts and the way I feel about it. So the first question is, what policy issue before the council are you most interested in addressing and why? And that was an easy pick for me, and that's housing. Because housing encompasses a lot of areas. It's a basic right, and it's something that touches each one of us. As we lay our head to sleep at night, we want to be comforted, we want to feel safe, and we want to know that everything is as it should be for us and our family. So as stated in your housing plan summary, and so I went to your website for this, and it's safe, stable, and affordable housing is essential for people to work productively, for children to learn, and that's a big one for me as a former educator and a present educator, and for individuals, families, and communities to thrive, and advancing the outcome of your MSP 2040 in the areas of stewardship, prosperity, equity, livability, and sustainability. So, and number 2, please describe the amount of engagement and type of engagement you will commit to as a council member. So I reflected on that, and I reflected on if I'm part of the communities that are serviced by the Met Council in District 3, you know, what kind of a person would I want? What kind of engagement would be fair for me and everyone that lives in my area? So I came up with a plan. My plan is to meet with at least half of the member cities served in District 3 at least once a month for coffee, to sit down and formally exchange ideas and concerns, because people need to be heard. That's part of our basic rights as citizens, as taxpayers, and members of this society. To stay in touch via email and telephone, and to build a dialogue and to gain an insight into their concerns, problems, and goals for their respective cities, and how the council can help them and be of service. So that's my plan. And number 3, the third question, what have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or an organization you have worked with in the district? I have knocked on doors and spoken directly to constituents to help elect the first African-American female, Kissy Coakley, to the Minnetonka City Council, which is part of District 3. Community, I have served on Minnetonka's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, and I currently serve under that, under Mayor Weesom for the past year. I have provided a free STEM summer camp for students of color and low-income students for the past 3 years through my nonprofit, America's Urban Elementary STEM, to help ignite that spark of interest and hope for kids that can one day be the future engineers and technology leaders that we're going to need. an organization. I'm a current member of the Minneapolis NAACP, a historic African American civil rights organization. And I also volunteer with the local DFL on their nominating committee, which I currently serve on right now, and Senate District 49. And I'll also be doing a fundraiser for them this in the fall. So my idea is if we all put a drop in the bucket's going to fill up. So, and the drop that you put in, it may not seem significant, but if we're all putting in and you're encouraging other people to put in their drop in through your actions, then we're all boats are going to rise and we're going to be in a better place as a society.
Okay. Are there questions from committee members? I can't see everyone, so any questions for Dr. Carter? Okay, Dave?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on your being a teacher and an educator. I see the different, you know, a lot of different degrees and things there. That's great. How do you feel the teaching element might fit in with being a Met Council member? Because there's a lot of concerns about the Met Council, a lot of maybe misunderstandings about how it runs, services provides.
We're all teachers and we're all learners. And I think we all learn from each other and we all teach each other because we all have our areas of expertise. And so, so my model for that is whatever the issue is, you're doing your homework as a teacher. You have to prepare for class every night. So you do your homework in terms of preparing for whatever issue. I try to do a deep dive on that issue so you're on the right side of it. And then you're going to educate your colleagues and establish a dialogue, which is something that we need to reestablish as a society. So you may be on one side of the issue and I may be on the other side of the issue. But if we have an honest dialogue and I've done a deep dive on what the true concerns are, then we can find our middle ground. And when you walk away, you're going to have the piece that you need to make you feel comfortable about supporting it. And I'm going to have the piece that I need. And we can put something together that's going to be for the overall good of our area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another question? I guess not. Well, thank you for your comments. We appreciate them. Thank you for your interest.
It's an honor. Thank you guys for taking the time. And this is something for a long time I said, you know, one day I'm going to add something in terms of my contributing to local political activities. And I thought, well, you know, when I get the time, one day, but you get to a certain age and you think, well, you know, man in the mirror says, your one day is now. And if you really do what you say, and if you are who you said you are, then you have to step in and do it. So that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you. Okay, our next candidate is Jade Johnson.
Chair Williams, I'm just going to step out and get him from the hallway.
Okay.
Pizza does smell good. It was good. I will be hungry by the time this is over. We smell that pizza. Well, it's not that cool.
Thank you.
No. I've been to more brewing, I'm sure.
Okay, and you've received the questions ahead of time so that you are aware of them, and you heard the directions, I'm sure, that you'll have 6 minutes to answer the 3 questions. So, welcome.
The questions, just in case you need it.
I kind of,
Got it.
the first question was on policy.
Yep.
And so I have 3 that I'm most interested in, based on my profession and my experience. Inflow and infiltration, housing and transportation transit. Inflow and infiltration is a cost that's ever increasing with our sewer systems. As systems get older and we add more and more miles of sewers throughout, there's way too much water flowing into the sewers from people's sump pumps and from just broken sewers underneath the water table. Large cities have staff that can work with this and can figure it out. But smaller cities and mid-sized cities had more problems. I worked as public works director for a small city, and I was the first professional engineer they had that worked for them. And so I was working on infill I&I by looking at the timing of our pump stations, our sewer pump stations, and trying to relate it back to water rainfall events so that we could figure out what neighborhoods had the most problems. And that's about the time that I then quit. So I never really finished that project, but it's something that I think that the Met Council could help the smaller and mid-sized city that don't have professional engineers and don't have that kind of technical capabilities to do. So that's the I&I side of it. Housing is the second thing, and I see rising housing costs making it difficult for people like my son with a bachelor's degree to find a place to live that he can afford other than my basement. And the suburbs are not doing real great at that. Chaska, where Randy lives, is doing much better than Chanhassen, where I live. But I think we need some policies that will help the cities change their ordinances. I think there's a lot of sticks out there, but not many carrots. I figure out a way that the Met Council can encourage small cities, medium cities to accept a wider variety of housing and a wider variety of people. We had a big thing in Chanhassen that of an Aldi's and an apartment building going in. And it got a lot of those comments about those people, that want to go to Aldi's. Well, I love Aldi's. So anyway, we need more modestly priced housing, is the way I see that. Transportation, I lived in Chanhassen since 1980. I've worked in Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Wayzata, and Oak Park Heights. So I spent a lot of time riding our roads. I was on the Southwest Metro Bus Commission. I was also with the Highway 212 Advisory Group way back in the day, the early 90s. I've spent a lot of time on public transit around the world. I like to take public transit. It's just kind of something I like. So I look at encouraging cities to get more transit. And the other thing is our future in transit is going to be electric. Need more incentives to put in charging stations. And I'm thinking the economic development part of the Met Council could be used to help stores and businesses and cities put in more level 2 and level 3. Chanhassen is just putting in a bunch of level 3s, which doesn't help me because I've got a plug-in hybrid. And I'm thinking plug-in hybrids are going to be part of the stepping stones to get to full electric. That is, I'm plugged in right here. I drive here, I plug in. When we're through here, I'll be fully charged, ready to go to the next place. And that's something you can use to bring people into your city. And I'm hoping the Met Council will do something about that. I'm not sure. I did review everything on that, what the council's doing. Second question was on engagement. And this is an 8-month assignment, give or take. It requires someone who can quickly get up to speed and be effective. The first few months will be like drinking from a fire hose. And I've done that several times in my career. I was when I was headed down to Haiti with the United Nations, I was going to be working with the 101st Airborne Division there. And we're at Fort Bragg, and I was told, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to be working with headquarters of the United Nations and be the general support team leader for the general support of the Civil Affairs Unit. Same thing happened to me going to Bosnia. I actually got to, I was in Thailand working a different mission for the Army, and I got a phone call that says, we're reassigning you. You're not going to be an election team leader. You're going to be the team leader for the British division. So you're not going to have 4 people under you. You're going to have 54. And so that was something I had a week turnaround because between my Thailand mission and my Bosnia mission. So I've done this before, and I'm a quick study. My first job in the engagement, I think, will be to meet staff and learn a lot more about the Met Council. I've worked with the Met Council as Public Works Director, as a city councilman, and with various housing initiatives that I volunteered with. But I don't really know a lot of the detail. The second thing is to meet with all the city councils around. And my commitment will be more than 20 hours a week, and I think it'll be closer to 40 for the first few months, and I'm ready for that. Advancing equity and diversity. My most work with that has been in homeless work and housing. I worked with various different groups over the years in homelessness and housing, and standing on street corners holding up signs. You know, I have worked with that a lot. So that gets us down to about 10 seconds.
Thank you. Questions from the members of the committee? Anyone? Okay, Dave?
Well, I was just going to say, I know you kind of ran out of time on the engagement, so I wonder if you could just give us a little more. It sounds like you have the available time.
Yeah.
So how would you use it? Or, I mean, I know you need to get up to speed. How do you feel like connecting with cities and things like that?
Well, in some of my volunteer work, I already worked with cities and elected officials, and I was an elected official. So I know that it's going to take several months to get around because all the cities in this area, their city council meetings are either on the first or third Monday or Tuesdays. So they all overlap. Almost every one of them are on Mondays or Tuesdays. There was, I think even Prairie was Wednesday. There was just 1 or 2 outliers. So when I was trying to work all of them back in 2020, I was trying to get to all the city councils. And we're working on a resolution we're trying to get to city councils at that time. So that's going to take about 2 months of Mondays and Tuesday evenings. I'd also want to have some times where just regular people can sit down and talk to me. I think that's important. City councils don't always have the same point of view. They have different information. They have more information usually.
Thank you.
There's time for one more question, Chair Williams.
Okay. Anyone else have a question?
Somebody's got their hand raised.
Okay, I can't see. Oh, Andrea.
Thank you, Chair Williams. And thank you, Jay, for interviewing. I got 2 questions. I know it's time is of the essence, but you're really interested in sewer policies, and I know a lot of cities struggle with SAC charges. And so what's your thought around trying to help cities, you know, as they grow and those SAC charges become more impending? How do you help cities deal with that? And then you talked about more moderately priced housing, but many communities really need deeply affordable housing. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, I was being a little, what do you call it? Like a lot of people in the western suburbs, when you say affordable, it is a real turnoff in the western suburbs where this district is. So I was using modest in my case, it's affordable. But this is something, when you say affordable to the Chanhassen City Council, 4 eyes glaze over. So that's why I'm trying to use the word modest. I believe the SAC charges, as I remember, are for the new, you got to pay for new infrastructure. One part of that is, paying for the expansion to the sewage treatment plants. Well, that's why the I&I is so important. We're processing a lot of clean water. If we can eliminate more and more clean water, we can put more sewage in. I had one plant in Illinois that was they pumped 20,000 gallons a day, and their sewage plant was at 100,000 gallons per day. So they had a significant I&I problem.
Yep.
That's time, please.
Mhm. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're running a little ahead of schedule here with one withdrawings, but is Sherry here? Sherry is here.
She'll be virtual.
Okay, there she is. I thought I saw her earlier.
Yes.
Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you. So you want me to just go right in?
Right, you have the questions ahead of time. And
Okay.
you have 6 minutes to answer those 3 questions.
It's actually, sorry, Chair, it's 7 minutes, but I got it. I got the timer.
Okay, I can use
My
that
script
extra
says
minute.
6, okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Sherry Pugh, and currently I am finishing my first term on the Mound City Council. I've worked in the field of community and housing economic development for over 40 years, actually. So when you say what policy issue, obviously housing kind of perks to the top. But actually for Met Council, I'm really kind of interested in transportation. Recently, I had a situation because of vision issues where I have become a frequent flyer on Metro Mobility. And it's given me new insights into the transportation system. I used to commute on the regular bus system when I was going to graduate school and stuff. So I'm familiar with that. But I think the transportation is really a critical issue. And having lived in a community that has that unique situation where we're not right off a highway, so we're kind of difficult to get to, I've become aware of the issues on county roads and the dangers of people driving, and just the whole issue about cost and how can we move and transition to electric mobiles and other more affordable transportations. So I think that I bring my housing lens and economic development lens to the transportation conversation, but that would be an interest area for me. And equally the environment. I'm really concerned. I live on Lake Minnetonka. People out here tend to think about the lake being theirs. They don't relate to the fact that that lake is connected to Minnehaha Creek, which runs through lots of other communities that are in this district, and to the city of Minneapolis, and then in the Mississippi River. And having worked in the Mississippi Delta for 3 years, I can tell you people in Louisiana and Mississippi have no appreciation for Minnesotans. They feel that we dump all the garbage in the river and it comes down and they suffer the consequences. So I'm interested in those things. In terms of engagement, I've spent my career doing community engagement. And I think there's 2 levels of engagement with Met Council. Obviously, there's engagement with the local governments because that's where our first connect would be. But there's also a need to do engagement with residents. I was shocked at my city council meeting when residents came in. We had a proposal for market rate housing. And the residents came in and said, Met Council is going to make them do low income housing. This is just a trick on Met Council. And I was sort of blown away with the accusations. And so there's a perception sometimes of a single function of this organization and what it does. So I think there's a need for engagement with citizens, helping them understand the breadth of the work. I always said to people in Mound, my family moved there 60 years ago, so we've been there for a long time, and the first African-American family. So, you know, they had one of those meetings when we moved in. But I would say to them, when we moved here, we were on septic tanks, and we had a really poor sewage plant that dumped sewage into a lake that filtered into Lake Minnetonka. I said, it's Met Council that took us off of that and put us on a sewage system. It's why we have a transportation system, you know, so that they can see that there is a greater good of the organization and the regional collaboration that benefits them. So, so for me, you know, engagement would involve, I think, one strategy would be doing town hall meetings with state legislators and just giving updates as to what the council is doing for the regular citizens. And then obviously meeting with local government officials. You know, the timing of city council meetings, it makes it impossible to get to all of them in 1 year. But maybe you could do coffees and things like that with different city councils, bringing them together, maybe getting them in somewhat regional groups. And also I chair Age Friendly Minnesota, which this leads me into my piece about equity. And so I'm always thinking about, as we now move into this new era where there's lots of money for infrastructure, it is an opportunity for cities, as they're doing their infrastructure, to think about equitable development strategies for that infrastructure, to think about how do seniors navigate, how do people with vision issues navigate, how do, you know, how do a variety of people, children on bicycles and mothers with strokes, how do they navigate on our infrastructure, our roads, our sidewalks, distinguishing colors on sidewalks so you can see the difference between the curb and the street, different things like that. So I think that we have an opportunity, because we're all popped up to do infrastructure work now, that's one of the things. In terms of my equity work, I was the director of Northside Residents Redevelopment Council in North Minneapolis, and we had a strategy called Plymouth Avenue, the Pathway. Plymouth Avenue is 3.5 miles long. On one end is the Mississippi River, on the other end, Theodore Wirth Park. We created a plan that dealt with reforestation. Plymouth Avenue was missing 70 trees. The community didn't know that they should call the park board and say, replant our trees. So we did. We planted those trees. We created pocket parks along the way to provide a place as mothers were walking their kids, they could stop off. These are things that in North Minneapolis, people just talk about, well, we need housing, we need jobs, but they weren't looking at the environment around them. And part of equity is being comprehensive and including those things. The other thing was Minneapolis said, we're a bikeable city. There was not one bike path in North Minneapolis. It took us
1 minute warning. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. It took us 4 years, but we finally got Plymouth Avenue striped as a bike path connecting those two great anchors, the river and Theodore Wirth Park. We also pursued issues around economic development and housing, and we used as a grounding for us PolicyLink, which is a national organization based out of California that says equity is a policy agenda. And so that's how we did our development in those days. So I think I'm probably done.
Thank you. You said a lot. Okay, some questions? Anyone have any questions for Sherry? Okay, Andrea.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Councilmember Pugh. I just want to jump on and say congratulations on the protected bike lanes on Plymouth Avenue. You know, and full disclosure, I worked with and for Sherry at Northside Residents Redevelopment Council, and that was one of our big goals, and I'm just really pleased to see that it has come to fruition. So
Yeah.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you.
Sure, I'd just like to say real quickly that I like your examples where you're connecting the things you've done, the local level, to some of the Met Council kind of projects and the difference it made for sewage treatment, the difference it made to the environment and stuff. I thought that was those are good stories that connect locally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Lived experiences. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going now, right?
Yeah,
I guess one last question.
Okay.
there's still time. Yeah.
If selected, would you step down from the council?
Yes, I would. My term is up in November, so I would step down.
I think that's a requirement of being, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be an elected official if you're on the Metropolitan Council Committee. Okay, well, thank you. Our next candidate is James White. Thank you, you've been patient.
Off of mute, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everybody. Actually, I sign in as James White, which is my name, of course, but I'm really known by most people as Jim.
Okay.
And I've got your questions here. And on the first question, what would I focus on? Very much like the biggest expense in most people's lives is transportation and housing. Those two are so intricately linked that I think that has to be the focus. We have to finish the Green Line and the Blue Line extension because we have train tracks now, but we don't have a system. And no major city survives and grows without a system that has a very good public transit system, including rail. Los Angeles has 25% of its space in car lanes, and it's the most packed city in the United States. And you can't outbuild highways, so you have to have transit. We need that. So that would be where I'd focus on, although my heart is, of course, in parks and open space because I have a lot of time and experience on that. But on the engagement issue, I would commit to go to all the board meetings and any committees I'm part of, and also do outreach in the district. It's really out here in district surrounding Lake Minnetonka. While the 10 years I was at the city council and the 2 terms as mayor, I never once saw a Met council member at a city council member at meeting, not one time. And I always thought, well, that's a mistake because Met council, we were really dealing with lots of water issues and so on because of the lake, and we have a third of all the Metro council's lift stations protecting this lake, as one of the applicants just said. So we really need to stay engaged and involved with them. So I think that's a huge issue for us to know who our commissioner is. And the other one is advanced equity experiences. Well, in my, as you can see in my career, I've worked I have a kid that grew up in the city. And all my experiences really were working with people just starting out. We had immigrants from World War II and so on. And I was born in Phillips neighborhood, South Minneapolis. And when I joined, when I was old enough to build a house, my wife and I built a house in Northeast Minneapolis in an urban renewal project. We did an urban homestead type of arrangement where we bought the land from the city and then we built our own house ourselves. It took us a year to do it. But my wife and I and our business partner went into the business doing that. And I ran for the neighborhood organization. I became chair of the St. Anthony East neighborhood organization. And it was awarded during that period of time as the top urban renewal area of the United States. Came in on time, under budget, as planned. And what we had there was a neighborhood that was like Noah's Ark tipped upside down. We had people from everywhere on earth there. We had Italians, Ukrainians, Russians, lots of Poles, of course, Scandinavians, and then, of course, Africans and people from the Mideast. And we all got along well. And the city then asked me to run up a plan for how to do the land that they had acquired for a freeway, and I took that project on. And then they hired me at the HRA to do work in neighborhood development because I had been spending a lot of time doing that. So as a neighborhood development person, I got involved. My first project, they sent me out to Phillips, where I was born, to help develop a Native American project out there because we had the largest urban Indian population in the United States, and there was so much poverty, and there was no equity. And I got together with Roger Cook and Brenda Draves, who wanted to put in a business development center, starting with a shopping center. And it took us 3 years, but we got it done. And it's still there. They don't call it AIBDC anymore. They call it AICDC, but it's the same. It's the same project, and it was a lot of fun to work with the Indian community. And next project I did, I took on the city had me working in finding a neighborhood grocery store. So we did a big, huge project in Northeast Minneapolis at the Quarry dump. And to get that done, because of the community opposition to new retail, I had to do a trade area analysis, and I determined that every neighborhood in Northeast and Southeast Minneapolis should be part of the committee to judge this project. And we ran a United Nations type of project where we had all these neighborhood organizations get together, and it was a love fest in some ways. We had a lot of discussion, and we televised the meetings, and we met every month in committees and meetings, and we got it done. And we had every neighborhood organization gave its approval. When that project was built, it won the national award for the best cleanup project in the United States that year, beating out the Army, General Mills, City Booster, and we hired over 2,000 people worked there. And it was getting groceries in a neighborhood that needed it in inner city Minneapolis. And then they turned around, and I worked at that point on the next heck of a project, which was the Sears project. And I know the council members were all involved in that because Phillips needed something. We had 1.9 million square feet of empty building, and it was going downhill fast. There were, gun casings in the neighborhoods, and it took us 8 years to get it all done. But when we got it done, we had a project we could all be proud of. It was the best redevelopment project, historic preservation project, and the largest project done in Minneapolis. It was the heaviest building in Minnesota, by the God. Each floor is the thickness of a parking ramp. And it was done without the kind of engineering.
Jim, sorry, 1 minute.
Okay. So anyway, and then of course, in Orono, I was able to change the housing zoning so we could put in multifamily housing. And it was highly resistant in the western suburbs. And a lot of people say, well, they're gonna come in and it'll just be a giveaway and so on. But we had the council approval, and then we worked on our first project, and we couldn't get it done. We had our developer lined up, and we couldn't get it done because the neighboring city wouldn't let us have water, and we couldn't bring it was too expensive to bring down our line. But they still had the zoning in place, and so we can qualify for housing assistance from Met Council because we do have plenty of land available in Orono. And then the last thing I'll say, I better hurry up because I was part of the development team that did the 515 on the Park project. It's at transit located at Cedar Riverside in the green and blue zone. And it was the largest project at the time. And it has plenty of 3-bedroom units in it, and half of it's affordable to 60% median income. And then we have another 17 acres we're doing out in Brooklyn Park. That'll be workforce housing, and also it's right at Candlewood Drive. Last thing is, I guess I've worked everywhere, including Washington County, which I love. Okay.
Okay. Impressive. Thank you. Any questions? Anyone have any questions? Okay. Okay, there's Dave again. Okay,
Yeah,
Dave.
well, no, I am, first off, thanks for all the different work you've done. I don't know that trying to see the years you were mayor, but we've been mayors the same years, but I'm over in Anoka County, and so it's a little different world, but
Yeah.
I appreciate all your work on these projects, and I suspect that when you talked about not seeing a lot of Met Council folks coming through the city council, I suspect that that'd be probably the first thing you'd be changing if you were chosen.
Definitely. I hate to say this, I don't like to put down anybody, but I didn't know who the current one was that left. People out here said, I talked to some of my neighbors and others and said, who was that? And someone said he departed because he moved, I guess. But we don't really know much about this. Most people out here, frankly, don't really they just want the government to run and not get involved in their lives. And so we'd like to change that a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Williams? Oh, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, great to see you, Jim. Have they built any? I mean, that's pretty impressive to upzone Orono. Has any multifamily housing been built?
Yes, but it isn't affordable. And this new bunch that's taken over is a step backwards. As one of the attorneys who sees our city council a lot, they said this is they've never seen such a big change in the city council, because this group is really all about basically paving things over. And they're important.
Yeah.
And I frankly, there's a lot of grumbling about it. There'll be a change at some point here, but we can go back to it. Nothing lasts forever, especially public jobs.
I know you did touch for a little bit on the Three Rivers Park District and the Hennepin County Park District too. So that must be a passion also behind housing.
Well, it is, because the trail systems that we've designed were designed about 50 years ago. We've kept it. Every community in the state of Minnesota has kept that. Now we have probably the best trail system in the United States. And I'm on them all the time, even though I have to wear a brace because I got my foot damaged when I was coaching basketball in the inner city 54 years ago. I have to wear a brace, and I have some mobility issues. But I still go out on the trails as much as I can.
We're at time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I'm just going to step out and get the last candidate.
Okay. Ken?
The hot seat down there. Down there, it's the one down there.
Hello, Ken. This is Janet. Of course, we spent a lot of years on the Regional Council of Mayors.
Good evening. How are you?
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got your 3 questions ahead of time.
3 questions.
Okay. You
Go.
have 6 or 7 minutes to answer them.
Okay. Well, first of all, good evening, and honored to be here with you this evening. The policy issues, there's so many things going on with the Met Council. I mean, you pick one and it's a pressing issue. But to me, the most pressing policy issue in front of us is trying to offset the negative fallout from the Southwest Light Rail. Because if we don't get that turned around and get the negative publicity and public concern reversed, it's going to dog all of our other agenda items, and everything's going to be an uphill slog. So that's what I would like to dig into first. And I know you guys have already been doing this, I'm sure. It's not just messaging, it's also admitting to what's gone right, what's gone wrong, what's been done to correct it, and why we're confident that going forward, if these kinds of things crop up again, we know what to do and to avoid these cost overruns and delays and all that. And you know, the Met Council is, from its start, had decades of operational expertise and efficiency and all of that. That's what it's known for. And for this hiccup to happen, we've got to get back in the lane that we belong in. And you know, go back at history. I mean, I grew up in Minneapolis, and I remember as a kid, you know, Minneapolis and St. Paul used to be in each other's throats. And I remember once, for a period of time, Minneapolis went on daylight saving time and St. Paul did not. And so you had the newscaster saying, well, it's 6 o'clock in Minneapolis, 5 o'clock in St. Paul. The bus schedules were all cattywampus. You know, you had to have somebody to pull that together, right? And then the bus system, the Twin City Rapid Transit, morphed from streetcars to buses. That was a debacle. And then the local mobster, Kid Can, got involved. The feds finally brought him down, but it was a total fiasco. The governor stepped in and turned it over to Carl Pohlad to sort out. And ultimately, the Met Council came in and took over and has been doing a fine job ever since. But with this history, and then the Met Council took over storm and wastewater, did a great job. Did the comprehensive plans for cities so that cities could look to their future and plan accordingly and then coordinate among themselves. And that was a great boon too. Even the first two light rail systems, even though they were controversial at the time, still worked okay. Then Southwest Light Rail came along, and now we got this hiccup. We got to get past it and make sure that people realize that we aren't so set in our ways that we can't be flexible when times change or demographics change. I mean, people aren't commuting anymore, so are we recognizing that? Are we doing anything different? So it's all complex, but I think the public needs to know that the Met Council is on top of it and won't be repeating these errors going forward with whatever their agenda item is. So that's I think a critical first step. So that's question one. Question two, amount of time and engagement. My business partner and I sold our two manufacturing businesses down in southern Minnesota a couple of years ago, so I can devote whatever time is necessary to this. We are manufacturing truck equipment down in Waseca. Equity, you know, I think I know equity or what their definition is in it. But I used to, years ago, I was the head of allocations for the Greater Twin Cities United Way. So we allocated money to the different social service agencies. And we recognized that these emergency services that we were delivering were required because there were underlying complex issues going on with people. And so we set up a system called Community Initiatives, and they put me in charge of that. And the first one was early childhood development. We put together a program. We trademarked it as Success by 6. It was so successful that we wound up licensing other large communities across the country that still have some of them going today. The other two initiatives that were under me were affordable housing and affordable transportation. And those two were interconnected because they just are. Now, back then, the issue was if you want more affordable housing, you need to go out further where the land costs weren't as great. Now, I know the philosophy has changed a little bit on that. But if you put people out there, how do you get them in? And it's not just into the city core, it's how do you get them to the jobs that are spread out throughout the region? How do you get them to their schools? How do you get them to health clinics, grocery, all that stuff? So the affordable housing problem became an affordable transportation problem. And anyway, it's all linked together. It's very complex. And the affordable housing issue, you're dealing with so many different agencies running funding that becomes a bit of a jigsaw puzzle too. But it's what you have to do. we also put in at the Anoka Service Center, we put in a United Way office because when people were there to get licenses and all the rest of it, the social services were there for them as well. So anyway, minute left. I think that's pretty much what I've got for you. It's just it's a big job. I admire all that you guys do. There's no warm fuzzies, you know, that people snipe at you. I mean, it's just the political arena. Just it is what it is. But you're doing the heavy lifting. So I admire you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, some questions for Ken?
Stump the panel.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, that's right, because I have been asking questions. I'm just really curious, because it sounds like that United Way experience was kind of critical. I mean, to developing a lot of the things in mind. I mean, it really was. I mean, sure, a lot of money moving through, a lot of people looking for different new ideas.
Well, yeah, there was a lot more money moving through United Way back then because you had large corporations that were doing fund drives, you know, and they don't have that today. But we also realized how we were limited and that the legislative bodies had to come through with the big money because these are very expensive things to do, as you well know. So that's what makes it complex. But for me, it was eye-opening because it injected me into the nonprofit world, and that was not the world that I had lived in. So, and I just I did my best, but it was a real eye-opener.
Well, it's, part of it was that, and then because you have a lot of your private sector experience. I mean, you have a lot of the financial. You get that stuff running these companies and being directors and stuff. So you have that experience with money and financials.
Right. Well, and in Wayzata, we had our Lake Minnetonka has only 2% public land on the lake. And a good chunk of that is in Wayzata, right along the main part of Wayzata. But it was in railroad tracks and parking lot. And people didn't have access to the lake from all over the region. So within the last 10 years, we turned that into a promenade and got access to the people. We started programming for disadvantaged kids to learn about the lake and the ecology and get on the lake and give them opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have had. So, well, that took a lot of money. That was a $20 million private public.
Time for one more question.
Okay. One more question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question. I just want to say thanks for the history lesson.
Yeah.
Kid Can, remember Kid Can? He was a real mobster.
Wow. And the whole daylight savings time thing, that's like fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think all of that history is important for being able to move forward.
Right.
Because anything's possible. Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
See you, Janet.
Right. Well, it's great. It was great to hear from all the finalists tonight, that's for sure. This certainly was an incredible cohort of candidates. So thank you for your interest in the position and for serving our region. And I also want to say thank you to all the nominating committee members for your time and your dedication to help the governor and the Metropolitan Council during this process. In case you weren't here at the beginning of the meeting, do we have more here now? I just want to highlight the next steps. Following the public hearings, the nominating committee will make appointment recommendations to the governor and the lieutenant governor, who will select the council member to fill the vacancy. Once a candidate has been named, the governor's office will notify the Minnesota Senate of their intentions to appoint a council member to serve District 3. So that wraps up our final interviews, and we thank you again for joining us, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. So Jason, you can go ahead and turn off the stream.